What's up, guys? Back with more Kess action. All right, this game I'm up against Lucidius. I think I'm using pretty much the same deck that I was using in the last video. This is a few days later, I think on the 12th of March. And just wasn't playing a ton of games, probably maybe a dozen or so in the intervening week. But this was a particularly amazing, nail-biting game. So get ready, get set. This is pretty intense. All right, I'm up against Fynn the Fangbearer. I think this is actually the first game I've played against this creature. I don't know how recently it was printed. Obviously a fairly recent set. Death Touch. Whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. Nasty. So I imagine if you fill your deck full of green Death Touch creatures, you can put your opponent on an insanely fast clock and really just force them to have perfect removal spells or die in short order. And speaking of a hand that does not have perfect interaction at all, I've got super clunky hand. Obviously I can Thoughtseize first turn, but I'm going second, which means I'm not going to be able to take anything of impact out of his hand on turn 1, and I have nothing short of, even the Kolaghan's Command can't stop this thing since it's a 1/3. So this hand is pretty much a no-brainer mulligan. Let's see what we get next here. Of course I'm going to mulligan. And I get a much more interactive hand that contains both Force of Negation and Treachery, but unfortunately 0 mana. This Wind Orb keeps showing up again. So that's going to go back for a new hand of 7. It's a game like this just makes me so grateful for the modern mulligan rules, because having to go down to 5 cards against a deck like this right off the draw could very, very likely mean that I just get a hand that I can't play and can't stop this thing. So being able to sculpt my hand with 7 cards is just integral. So looking at this hand, I've got a bunch of good interactive stuff: Trinket Mage, Acceleration in the form of Dimmer Signet. I've also got Jace the Mind Sculptor, Wasteland. I'm not going to want against mono green. And I don't think I want Fetid Pools either, given the fact that I actually haven't double-checked the mulligan that I do here. But I suspect that those are the 2 cards I've thrown away, just because Dimmer Signet allows me to get Jace online a turn earlier. Fetid Pools coming to play tap, not so great. I've already got black and red and double black mana and red, so I think those will be the 2 cards that I ultimately opt to mulligan. Yeah, that looks right. Good, I'm of the same mind I was back on the 12th of March, apparently. So we're going to kick it off. Lucidius has actually mulliganed 1 time, but I imagine his deck is pretty resilient to this sort of thing, since all he really needs is land and his commander, which puts me on a 5-turn clock if I can't interfere with it. And it's got Death Touch too, which is problematic for just blocking it with something like Trinket Mage. You can actually just punch right through Trinket Mage. It does at least trade with Kess, but I imagine he might be playing with some ways to buff his commander as well. We'll see. Okay, let's just draw some burn. This deck has tons of burn. I should be able to get something, or just some kind of removal that can kill his guy. Narset is not what we're looking for. I'm just going to play the Volcano. All right. 2 mana and Lightning Greaves. That's kind of an interesting choice. I suppose he just views these cards as being somewhat interchangeable, and that at least if you can put Lightning Greaves on the Fynn the Fangbearer, it'll be able to attack and poison me right away. Plus, it will be extra protected. So it's interesting. I mean, I'm not sure if I would make this play into a deck that clearly has blue mana, because if your commander gets countered, then the Lightning Greaves don't do anything. And I imagine his entire deck revolves around attacking with the commander. So it's an interesting speculative play. He's sort of just gambling that I don't have any way to kill his guy at instant speed and don't have any counter magic by not playing it right there when I feel vulnerable. I think in his position I would have just played the 1/3. And because it's not like if I have something like a Lightning Bolt or I don't know, Incinerate or Terminate or something that I can't just kill it anyway in response to Lightning Greaves going on it. So this just gives me an opportunity to draw into 2 mana counter magic to stop his bear. All right, I draw Badlands. It's quite good. And of course, I'm not going to leave mana untapped running a bluff that I don't have. So I'm just going to play the Dimmer Signet and start getting hit for poison, most likely. Just hope... Oh, Jesus, Ancient Tomb. That's really scary. This gives him the opportunity to play potentially 2 Infect creatures on turn 1. He's tapping 4 mana. Core Prowler. 4 mana Infect, dies Proliferate. Yikes. Very, very scary. So this thing doesn't have Death Touch, but it gives just 2 Infect counters anyway, so it effectively does. And it has the Proliferate ability, which is going to be potentially very problematic. All right, now I'm taking 2 Infect. At least I can shore up my ground defenses here. All right, let's see what we get. Mana Confluence. All right, well, plenty of mana, making me feel even better about throwing away the Fetid Pools early on. So a couple of choices here. Obviously, I'm not going to play Narset of Parter of Veils. That doesn't do anything. Playing Jace isn't horrible. And in some cases, it might actually make sense to play Jace, because I just need to get a tutor so that I can wrath the board with a something like a Toxic Deluge. before these guys get out of control. But the problem is he's still got Greaves and 4 mana. His commander's so cheap that he'd just be able to redeploy it anyway. So I don't really view board sweepers as being all that good. If I play Jace, he might feel compelled to attack into that, but that doesn't really advance the board position at all. What really advances the board position here is just getting more mana, giving me the option to do multiple things in a turn, particularly off of Kess. So that's ultimately, and it gives me a very important 2/2 blocker against the Core Prowler. So that's what I opt to do. Just going to tap 3 mana here. Go get Trinket Mage. A little bit of consideration to maybe getting Mox Diamond, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it's just better to get Soul Ring so that I can chain recast Kess Dissonant Mages. I've got plenty of mana now. Enough mana to cast Kess at least twice. Okay. Down comes Fynn. Okay. You can throw the Greaves over there. And he plays Thorn-Wield Archer, another Death Touch creature that's cheap. And pretty interesting play here. He has multiple options, but I think ultimately it does make the most sense for him to just attack with Fynn, since he knows that I can't just trade the Trinket Mage off for it. He could possibly just attack with Fynn right now and leave these 2 creatures back, and then attack with all 3 of them on the following turn. But after thinking for a bit, he elects to just send them both in. And of course, I'm just going to trade with the Core Prowler. And I take 2 more poison counters from Fynn, and of course the Proliferate effect pumps that up to 5 poison. Halfway dead already. And what is it, like turn 3? Because it's his turn 4. It's scary. This thing's really scary. I haven't played against it before. I mean, it's obviously very linear, extremely one-dimensional, and gets thwarted by a lot of stuff. But if it gets rolling quickly, you can just kill your opponent before the game even really gets underway, and you're able to just circumvent the entire 40 life commander damage mechanic that's endemic to the whole format, if you can kill them quickly with Infect. All right, I need to draw something good here, because right now I got nothing going on. Tezzeret the Seeker. All right, well, that's very interesting. Unfortunately, as much as I would like to play Tezzeret to start going and to go get Vidalcan Shackles so that I can steal away the Thornwield Archer. He only has 2 cards in his hand now, and Vidalcan Shackles is awesome because it prevents him from throwing Greaves onto the Fynn. I feel like I don't really... No, actually, I have enough mana here, so I'm just going to play Jace. And I'm looking at his board here. These 2 are going to be able to attack. I mean, obviously I'm taking a risk here that he could play Lightning, or he could play another Death Touch thing, Greaves it, and attack with all 3 and just kill me. But I don't feel that bouncing the Thornwield Archer really advances my game plan here at all. I really need to just draw some... I need to just draw some interactivity. Any type of burn, any type of removal will hopefully get me in a position where I can actually still survive this. Let's see, if I had played City of Brass and I had played Tezzeret the Seeker off of these 5, I could have untapped. Yeah, I guess I could have gone Tezzeret, untap everything, and play Kess, and just use Kess as a chump blocker. That might have, or not as a chump blocker, but just to trade with something. That might have actually ultimately been not the worst play. However, I would have had to, Kess would have died, and he would have lost one of his creatures and been able to just replay Fynn again for just 4 mana due to the Ancient Tomb, and I'd be kind of back in the same place, although I would have Jace at that point. It would have been interesting to see how that goes, but I opted to do this, and I got very lucky picking up Force of Will here, which gives me so much more breathing room for what's going to happen next. Fetid Pools return. So I'm going to put the Fetid Pools back, and I'm going to put back Narset, of course. Oh, wait, why did I hold on to Narset? That's weird. Okay. I guess I opted, I just wanted to play the Fetid Pools here. I do have enough mana to keep Drown the Lock. Oh, I know I did this. Okay, so it makes perfect sense. I want Drown the Lock as interactivity. My plan actually is to kind of, whatever he does, I can Force a Will it. Like, let's say he plays something for 4 or 5 mana. I can Force a Will, pitching Narset. That puts the card in the graveyard. Now there's 2 cards in the graveyard, and I can use Drown in the Lock to take down Thornwield Archer, which is pretty important right now. So I'm holding the Narset part of Veils so to feed the Force of Will, and that will power up the Drown in the Lock to hold off whatever he's doing. So I feel a little bit more fortified here, but still very, very vulnerable, depending on what's going to happen. All right, let's see what he's got. 3 cards. What are you up to? Lucidius, another land. That's actually good to see. And he casts Moss Viper, 1/1 with Death Touch. So this would have been a lethal attack were I not holding Drown in the Lock and Force Will. So while I was considering doing Force of Will to stop whatever his play is, I can just drown this thing anyway. And so we're sort of in the same place anyway. Yeah, unfortunately. The other option, yeah, he wasn't going to remove Lightning Greaves off. So even though Fynn, the Fangbearer, only has one power, unfortunately, Drown in the Lock cares about converted mana cost. So if he's not pulling the Greaves off of it, I don't have the opportunity to Drown in the Lock the Fynn when he only has 1 card in the graveyard. So in response to him equipping Greaves onto Moss Viper, of course, I'm just going to drown it And I've still got the backup Force of Will. It's a pretty precarious situation here. Yep, they're attacking. He's not attacking Jace. And I'm actually almost glad for him doing this. I was thinking like, I wonder if he's going to attack me or Jason. Unfortunately, you don't die at 9 poison counters. I am taking 4 more poison and now hovering on the knife's edge of lethal poison damage. Very scary situation. Thankfully, it does not have another poison guy, another death touch guy. Now I'm redrawing Tezzeret. I really need to draw a second island here. And lo and behold, thanks to Jace the Mind Sculptor surviving the turn, Arid Mesa shows up. So I'm going to put back City of Brass and now the Narset. Since I don't need that, I've got another card to throw away, but it's more versatile if I don't have to force. So I'm going to play my Tezzeret the Seeker. And, of course, just going to get Vidalcan Shackles right away. This gives me, thanks to the Arid Mesa now, I've got the ability to get a second island, and I can grab the Thornwheeled Archer and hold off his lethal attacking Fynn the Fangbearer. This is precarious, but I do at least have the Force of Will and a blue card to go with it. It's very, very touch and go right now, though. See what happens. All right, he taps a bunch of mana. This clearly is probably the card that he drew this turn. Ooh. Phyrexian Swarm Lord. Not a particularly impressive creature, but it's 4/4 Infect with a Graves in play. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 green insect token with an Infect for each poison counter your opponents have. I don't think I want my opponent getting 9 Infect insects every upkeep. This has to be forced. So I'm going to Force Will that. Be very glad for that. Now he goes to his attack step. Of course, I'm going to sack in response. Go get the lone fetchable blue thing in my deck, or island in my deck, and snag the Archer. No death touch attacking for you. And he's out of cards. Okay. Close, but still so far away. All right, what do we draw here? Dak Phaeton. Yummy. Okay, I'm going to draw 3. Hull Breacher and 2 land. Okay, well, that's pretty obvious to throw back the 2 lands. Okay, a bunch of different choices here. Of course, I can play the Hull Breacher, and then I can use Dak Phaeton to target him to get 2 treasure counters. I can also probably lower the risk of losing the game to something by just simply stealing the Lightning Greaves with Dak Phaeton. And after some consideration, I ultimately decide that this is by far the safer play. So I'm going to play Kess first, untap some mana. Just thinking about what to do here. Still thinking, yeah, I'm going to play Dak. And no temptation to use it to draw cards and do shenanigans with Hull Breacher. I can just flash back Hull Breacher anyway, and he might actually top deck some card drawing spell or something, and I can flash out the Hull Breacher right then to just make a bunch of mana and counter it effectively. But putting Lightning Greaves on Kess and preventing him from having Lightning Greaves and the ability to attack with haste feels like it's should almost certainly guarantee victory at this point. So he draws a card. All he gets is a Myriad Landscape. He realizes that the game has now slipped away at this point, and it indeed has. I'm going to go Hull Breacher at the end of the turn. And now I've got the ability to just drown in the lock, the Fynn, start attacking. I've got Jace going, multiple card drawing engines, Tezzeret. It's the writing's on the wall. But man, what a game this was. Holy shit. I mean, honestly, I expected this mono green Infect deck to be scary, but I didn't expect it to get you down to 1 poison counter away from death scary. And but very glad to have won this game. More sort of validation and proof of concept of what the Kess deck is capable of doing, pulling out these games where it just seems hopeless, which is what I love about control decks in general in this format. And I hope you guys enjoyed that Nailbiter one. I've got a bunch more games in the pipeline still, so stay tuned for those. Thanks for watching.